Let's take a look at our manpower classifications. The manpower that are in the drop downs, that's what I call manpower classifications. There's a database of sample classifications that we created. You can see them if you go to the labor and burden icon and click on that. It's going to show the different classifications. You can also open up a classification by double clicking on select in the direct labor screen. So if we double click, it's going to open up the classification. You can edit an existing classification. You can change whatever data you want. You can create new classifications by clicking on the Create New Classification icon. Let's take a quick look at our labor and burden icon. So you can see we have first year trainee, foreman, billable rate per hour. Let's see what else it says. Includes overhead and profit. Now on this one, this is interesting. We've had a lot of people that want to be able to use Manpower that includes their rate that they bill out per hour. They don't want to mess around with breaking it up into a pay rate and a burden and overhead later and profit later. So in this case here, it's a classification with the wage per hour of $75. And that's what they bill out. That's what the customer is going to get billed is 75 bucks an hour. That's fine. Just put it in wage per hour. If we open this guy up, double click, it's just $75 per hour with zero burden. Now, if you do that, that's fine. You just need to make sure in your bid price tab, your first sub tab is select overhead and profit. You just want to make sure if you're doing that when you account for your overhead, and overhead is your expenses to run your company. And so if you're including overhead in your billable rate per hour, that 75 bucks, if that includes overhead and everything, you want to make sure that you don't double dip on it. All right, so if you're doing that, click the radio button to select by specific category and do your overhead for everything except for labor. You can see we're leaving labor at zero because labor is already calculated in that 75, or overhead's already calculated in the 75 bucks an hour. And same thing with profit. If that 75 bucks an hour includes your profit, don't double dip if you want to be accurate. So for your profit, where you're telling the program how to calculate profit, do the same thing. Put your profit on everything other than labor, since your labor already has it included. Okay. Let me see. Let's just go back to the direct cost tab. Well, let's go to our database again. So we have different things, billable rates per hour. That includes overhead and profit. You can do that. You can create your own. Um, Foreman with a vehicle. So if we open this guy up, the burden actually includes the cost of a vehicle. So this foreman, he has his own van, and whatever job he's going on, I want to charge that job the cost of the van. We have a calculator. We'll get into this in a bit, but if I click on this link for the calculator, it's where you're calculating what you need to charge for your burden per hour. So you can see we have 23.37. But in this calculator, you're able to put in your cost for this employee, your additional cost other than pay rate. And you can see that we have an option here for vehicle, gas, maintenance, insurance. We put in 500 bucks. So we're charging the cost of the vehicle with this classification. And what's cool with doing this, if we were to have uh, a rush job and foreman with a vehicle, and we had two foremen with a vehicle on the job. Well, the cool thing by doing it this way with the cost of the vehicle with the manpower is that we're actually charging that job for two vehicles. Where if you have the vehicle in your corporate overhead, every job would be charged the same. But it doesn't matter, whatever works out for you. I just wanted to show you the different possibilities. All right, so back to our icon, we have service electrician with a truck, and this is a good thing to look at too. If we open this guy up, let's open up our calculator, what we've done in here is unbillable service hours, 15 hours per week. So we're figuring that, and that's actually part of the title. It was service electrician with the truck, 5 billable hours per hour day. So we're figuring with this guy, he's going to have 3 hours per day, 15 hours per week, so 3 per day of downtime traveling between jobs from the shop to the appointment or in between appointments. So by doing this, you're actually including the cost of that downtime in your billable rate per hour. So that's another cool way to do it. What else do we have here? Let's go back. Oh, and then a helper, same thing, a helper where you're adding 5 billable hours, so you're charging for his downtime in your burden as well. So you can see what we can do. Create new classifications. You can have a classification for each man if you want one for John Smith, one for Mike Johnson. So when you're populating your your direct labor, you actually see their names, which would be kind of cool. All right. So, anyways, let me open up one of these one more time. Classification name, have it whatever you want it to be. Skill level, we went over skill level, so the percentage of their capabilities compared to a journeyman. That way, if they're on a job, you're going to be adding additional labor to that job to make up for his lack of skill level. Pay rate increase. If you have a set date that this employee is going to be receiving a pay rate increase, put it in, and the program will automatically calculate what the pay rate increase would be. It's specifically helpful if you have a big job. We used to do a lot of housing jobs, big housing jobs, where you'd have maybe 300 homes in the project, and we would be there for multiple years. But if I'm going to start a job in April 1st, yet I'm going to have a pay rate increase June 1st, well, I would have that in here. I would have June 1st, my pay rate increase back in my back in the project info. I'd put my start date April 1st. So now it knows I'm going to start the job April 1st. I'm going to have a pay rate increase June 1st. It knows how many units. So if I had, say, 300 units in the project, it's going to know how many units I'm doing per week. So by all of that information, it could actually calculate how many units I'm going to do before the pay rate, from the start date to the pay rate, how many after, and it will actually average it all out and put a average amount on the estimate, so you're spreading out the pay rate increase to the units before the increase as well as the units after the increase. And it's important stuff. If you're in that type of scenario, that's an important feature to have. It used to kill me before I had TurboBid to actually calculate that. All right, let's open up we'll open up the foreman with a vehicle again. All right, so that's pay rate and burden. Now, TurboBid is going to use, actually let me cancel this, open up the direct cost so I can see this. Let's open up our foreman with a vehicle, move it down a little bit. Now I'll put it back up. TurboBid is going to use the pay rate per hour and then the burden per hour. So if we see, I'm going to move this down. Here's our 30 bucks an hour and then our 23.27. So those numbers come from this screen in these two cells. All right. So you need to manually put in what you want it to be. Now you'll see beneath it, it says billable wage and it says billable burden. These are actually from the calculator. So if we open this up and if you go through the factors, we're going to make that another video. But if you go through these factors, it's going to calculate basically total uh, your total burden. So it says 43,565. It's going to divide it by the hours that this employee is going to be on the job, and that's calculated in here as well. We're saying this employee is going to be 1,864 hours, and that's going to then be able to calculate what you need to charge per hour in order to get this cost back if he's working 1,864 hours. But Whatever's in these cells, the billable wage and the billable burden, when you hit OK, that's going to be displayed in these two cells. That's a reference, but you need to manually put in the amounts that you actually want this classification to use. Okay? It will automatically calculate the total of the pay rate per hour and the burden per hour in your total rate per hour. So let's hit cancel. Okay, so that's the manpower classification.